like heaven is a place where...
Here is another highly informative, raw audio segment with some very important information. Hopefully, you will gain a better understanding of a few more unanswered questions in your own life. Just by listening to this, we really appreciate you for letting John Henry Media Network assist in expanding your knowledge of self. Now, listen to this.
Looking at the blacks in the front seat, Bernie Mac joking right now, him and Richard Pryor.
Hundreds of millions, brothers and sisters, countless black bodies. The DNA, if you check the DNA of the Atlantic shark, it's got to have African blood. It's got to have something resembling us because they ate so many of our ancestors who were thrown overboard.
Right.
We got to start, but what happened specifically, as we talking about sexual themes, what happened to us to change us from the people who we were? These are the diagrams of the slave ships. You can just see how they were packed. You would be in like a sardine, like a can, just like this, where you could barely breathe, and brothers and sisters might even claw each other's brains out,
right,
just to try and survive, to get some oxygen, because of course, under those circumstances, you can't breathe. Now I want you to imagine, brothers and sisters, we're going to take a trip and understand what our ancestors went through. It's a horrible trip where we stripped from our families. We taken by a wicked slave master and they put us on ships, put us in the holds of ships where we can't even breathe. Some brothers are so sick and sad being in the holds of these ships that they don't even want to live, so they don't want to eat. And so the Europeans say, no, if you don't eat, you'll die. And I got to sell you at the top price on the market. So they bang his teeth out with metal chisels and then stick a funnel down and feed the pig slop. Brothers and sisters lying next to one another, listening to the screams and moans of his daughter or his son or his mother or her son as they're raped or brutalized or beaten. Sisters are taken up to the top tier, and 20 or 30 Europeans might all rape her right there, ejaculate on her right there. And then if she gets so sick and crazy she can't take it, maybe she jumps overboard. And so the Atlantic shark begins his new route that he begins to take and migrate in a whole new route, because they learn the routes from the slave ships, because they know that there'll be fresh African meat for them as they travel along these seas. Can you imagine the depths of the ocean, brothers and sisters? Can you imagine what it'd be like being a black woman who's always been respected and revered, being treated in ways that you can't even possibly imagine? Can you imagine being a black man so helpless that you have to sit and listen to the abuse of your women and your children while you can do nothing? This is where the beginning of the effeminization process occurs. Don't forget that on these ships, these Europeans weren't only raping black women. They was raping little boys. His highest and noblest aspiration. They were raping grown men even. What you gonna do? Yeah, they ain't gonna do it to me. What you gonna do with chain at your legs and chain behind your arms? If somebody got sick or was too rebellious, they just pick you up and throw you overboard into the depth of the ocean to be eaten by sharks. It was nothing. This is us beginning to turn into a whole nother people. When we got to America, we didn't know that they had these things called sex farms. And on these farms, grown white males would come and they could purchase our women. So they would come and our women would be used like merchandise. And they could come up and fill our women where they had no sense of their bodies and no ability to protect themselves. And they would always get a black male who was effeminized. No longer does he see himself as the protector of the black woman. And he would go around and say, hey, look what I got. Almost like a mannequin. Look, you want this type? Look what she got available for you. Right. Oh, these are the kind of things she does. Oh, do you want this one? Oh, do you want this one? Yeah. These are the type of things they did to us, where we had no control over our own bodies, no control over what we did. And a black man didn't exist in the way he existed at home, where we protected our women and our children. No, we had to sit by on a day-to-day basis and watch them totally humiliate us. But not only did we watch them humiliate us, we had to participate in our own destruction and humiliation.
So we began to covet these type of jobs where we could go around and show our women off. We began to take joy in doing them because we didn't feel that there was anything left. And so we were made into monsters. But you know, the white male, the women, you know, the women is cool that he could come about women, but he likes things a little different. That's not really his taste. If it's going to be a female, he would prefer a little girl. We talked about his development in the caves and hills of Europe. So they had sections of the sex farm with just little girls between the ages of 8 and 18. And they would dress the little girls in scantily dressed clothing and make the little girls dance around and gyrate. And while they would tell them to shake their behinds, and they would always have the most well-dressed black male on the sex farm. He had his high hat and his suit. He was the best-dressed brother in the place. And he would stand there with the sisters and he would gyrate while these little girls would gyrate and show their bodies off for these grown white males to come and purchase them.
That's right.
And this is the kind of thing that we went. And I know we're so far removed from slavery that we can't really imagine no black man standing around gyrating, showing our sisters off, little girls and our women, as some type of sex objects for grown males, dressing our little girls up as if they're some type of sex meat market or what have you.
Yeah, right.
I know we're so far removed from the slave plantation that our minds can't fathom that. But I want you just to try to imagine being so effeminized that you don't see yourself as the protector of your women.
Right.
Instead, you see yourself as the salesman of the sexual exploits for our women.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine being in a circumstance like that. Can you imagine, black man, standing before the world saying, here are our women. Look at her shake her thing.
Yeah.
Look at her show herself. She's really a sexual object. Do you want her?
That's right.
How much you want to pay for this one? Well, brothers and sisters, we got to be real careful. Because we don't watch it. Well, we think we were.
Come on with that.
We might find ourselves having our women being faceless and nameless, gyrating before the world as the sexual tools for the Europeans. See, Negroes always talk about slavery being over, but Negroes don't read. So the Negroes don't know what slavery was. And if you don't know what slavery was, and if you don't know what happened during slavery, Negro, you don't know when it's over. How do you know when it's over? How do you know when it's over? I mean, can you imagine? I know you can. Us selling our women to white males and they can buy her like bread in the exchange, going to the market, and she's some meat that can just be bought and sold. And see, that's what we were doing, brothers and sisters. That's where we've been, but see, we've forgotten. So consequently, all of the damage that was done to us during this time has us in a state now, a very frightening state, where we actually see it as acceptable to show our women off, just like we did on those sex farms, as sexual toilets and play toys for white males, or anybody who wants them. That's an effeminized black male, because he's been stripped of the inside that made him a man, that told him that it's my job to protect our women. I want you to imagine where that leaves us, brothers and sisters. What gets us in this condition that we're doing today? Where we are today is where we were yesterday. And we think that we've come a long way because we don't know the sexual types of things they were doing to us. And consequently, we're destroying ourselves before the world. We're telling the world that we want to be destroyed. We're telling the world that our women are here for sexual exploit. That's what they're here for. And we're not men because we're not here to protect them. We're here as salesmen to sell them to you. And I want you to look at these images because they're the same images. But it gets even worse because, you know, the cracker, you know, little girls is cool. You know, grown females are cool, but his highest and noblest aspiration to be with that little boy.
That's right.
I mean, that's where it all started from. I should say the beginning of it was with the little boy. So if you went on a slave plantation, the white males who really wanted to get down and dirty, they would go to a different section of the slave plantation. They would go to the section of the plantation with the little boys. And our little boys would be dressed up in earrings and makeup. And the white male would go around, ooh, oh, this is the one I like, oh. And they would be made to act as females. And presented as females. And the whites would oil our bodies up, the little boys up, and makeup, put the makeup on them, and the earrings, and sell them on the meat market. This is the feminization of black people, where the whites begin to see us through their own sick, sordid eyes, and then we begin, under the system of slavery, to act those very things out. These are the things they did to us.
That's right.
And so, can you imagine black men, us walking crackers around, showing off black males and black children as sexual objects to the world? This is what we did. Our little girls and little boys. So our whole minds are being devastated. And like I said, if you don't know where you've been, then you can't quite recognize where you are. Can you imagine today that we can take children and make them look like they're adults, ready for sexual exploit, and be acting these things out before the world and saying little black babies are really adult, and they can do adult things, which means they're ready for any sexual exploits that you might have. Our own children. If we don't know where we've been, we don't know where we are. We don't know what we're heading for. But I tell you what, it only gets worse, because see, those little black boys who were molested and raped in that way, well then they get older. And so they had something for those little boys. They had a specific job for those little boys. These little boys were on that plantation, on these sex farms. Once they became older, because all they knew was pain and savage hurt, they were then taken to places called breeding farms. And they were put in stables, in a stable like you would put a horse. And so their minds were devastated. And they would think like you would be on a savage level. And so these little boys who have been savagely raped were now used for the purposes of taking young black girls. She may be 12. She just reached puberty. She just began to have her cycle, and the white male plantation owner wants her to have what he called pups. So that she could have pups, he would take her to the breeding farm. And they would go to the breeding farm, and it would be brothers, just like brothers behind jail cages. And the brothers would be reaching out from behind the cages. And they would say, I want her. She's 12. I want to break her in. I can get her pregnant. I can get her some pups. I make twins. Because see, these little boys were devastated on those days. Now they're nothing but sick. So the white male would say, who do you want? Oh, I got a good one for you. Bring the little girl on. And they would stand around while this black grown male would savagely rape and impregnate this little girl. And this is what we were made into, brothers and sisters. This is how we were sexually violated. And these are the type of monsters that whites made us into. And the white whale would just stand there with his sick self and watch the whole process and say, yeah, you're doing a good job, Buck. While this grown black male who's savage in his mind because of a crime that happened to him, a rape and a molestation that's so deep in his mind that he can't imagine, that now he goes like the monster that he was made, and he does it to our little girls. And so we have a savage cycle of sickness and crazed madness in our race that was inflicted on us by a group who hates us, by a group of individuals who we can't be holding hands with and thinking that they're our friends, because they made us think that we were special, and that we were something special, that we were some kind of hero, when we could savagely rape our own little girls. If we're not careful, brothers and sisters, if we're not careful, I know it might sound crazy, but we'll find ourselves celebrating and appreciating and thinking that individuals are cool who savagely rape our daughters today. That's what we'll do. You know him, don't you? Or we celebrate him. He urinates on black girls. But the same thing that happened on the slave plantation of yesterday is happening right before our very eyes. So this is what we have gone through that puts us in this sick state of madness that we find ourselves in today.
I know that was a tough journey. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir. I don't know, bro. I don't know.
That was a tough journey. But that's the journey we've been on.
That's the journey. White journey, bro.
See, yeah, that's a white journey. See, be very cautious. Next time a Negro tells you, forget about slavery, you tell that Negro, I don't think you know nothing about slavery.
That's right.
Tell him you can't forget about nothing that's still going on.
Right.
Because see, they claim that slavery is over. But what we didn't realize what we were really in, it wasn't just slavery we were in. We didn't know what was going on. got this picture here because I think